So, I was a proud young pioneer. But what exactly is a young pioneer? Let's get into it. If you've ever been to China, you've probably seen children running around with red scarves around their necks. Those are Young Pioneers. Young Pioneer is a youth organization for children aged 6 to 14, operated by CYLC and CCP. Most elementary school students become Young Pioneers by the time they graduate, as most schools require students of the right age to become members. As of 2002, there were an estimated 130 million Young Pioneers in China. Basically, they are the communist version of the Boy Scouts. For me, becoming a member of the Young Pioneers meant boosting my personal growth both mentally and physically. Before my initiation, I read a lot of stories and articles about the Young Pioneers. The older members always look stronger, taller, and smarter in the children's book and magazines. They often appear as role models in these books, helping elderly people cross the street, doing farm work, maintaining order, and even fighting bad guys like little soldiers. They have all kinds of hobbies such as fixing electronics, collecting insect specimens and ore samples, and turn themselves into human electric wires. It seems like there was nothing this kid couldn't do. Many of their skills were linked to surviving or preparing for an incoming catastrophe event. I guess it was probably because we were still in the post-Cold War era in the 80s and the 90s. Just like 007 keep fighting the Russian, even the Soviet Union was no longer exist.
Beg your pardon, forgot to knock.
So as the Young Pioneer slogan goes, you need to always prepare, but prepare for what? Building communism or ET invasion? Who knows? As a Chinese elementary student, every time I ran through the school corridor, I saw poetry hanging on the wall. Of course, the first one was always Karl Marx, followed by his pal Friedrich Engels, Lenin, and Chairman Mao. Then there were bunches of scientists and soldiers who devoted their life to the crusade of building the ideal world without suffering, hunger, and war. Among these mid-aged men, there was one school kid who always caught my eye. His name was Lightning, not the sports brand Leaning, but Lightning. You didn't just need to be an outstanding student and outperform your classmate in academic to put your portrait on the wall. Most importantly, you needed to do things that others couldn't do. According to the official story, once upon a time, Lightning went to the mountain to collect ore sample when a wildfire started. The situation quickly spiraled out of control and was on the edge of total disaster. Naturally, as a great student and a young pioneer, it was his duty to prevent public property from being harmed. At least he demanded this of himself. Even though he was dissuaded multiple times, Lightning still insisted on going back to the fire field. The result was a tragedy. Lightning sacrificed his young life, but his spirit will always inspire us. He died as a proud young pioneer and became a hero after the incident for his brave act. He even has his own statue. Of course, at the time his behavior was unquestionably heroic, and I didn't think I would ever have that kind of courage to be like Lightning, but I will always look up to him as a role model and mentor on how to be a young pioneer. However, as I grow up, I learned alternative guidelines to being recklessly brave. It's important to recognize your own limitations and not put yourself in a situation that could be dangerous or even potentially waste your life. Maybe it was because they realized how stupid the propaganda was, and a few years later, Lightning's story was removed quietly from textbooks and all the promotional materials, as if he had never existed. The teenage hero that I used to look up to and idolize is never mentioned anymore. But who created this boy idol in the first place? Do they have to take responsibility for lying to us? No one asked and no one answered. As a child, I didn't think too deeply about these things and simply absorbed everything that was taught to me. I'm not even sure if Lightning's attempt to stop the fire was successful or not. I guess the illusion of being part of something magnificent was blinding my eye. I mean, look at them. They have a cool flag, a cool emblem, and a very enchanting anthem. I was 100% sold. I can't wait to join them. An elite children's league. It's like the movie Goonies or Stranger Things. Or maybe Starship Trooper is a more appropriate comparison. You get the idea?
All over the globe are joining up to fight for the future.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part too.
I was thinking that once I joined the Young Pioneers, I will become one of them, one of those cool kids I was yearning for. That would mean I will also have the privilege and resources to explore the wild nature with all the cool gadgets, and there were tons of adventures waiting for me, the long march to the rainforest, desert, and even Antarctica. Or maybe I can catch a foreign spy to prove my loyalty and patriotism to the motherland. It was awesome, at least in my imagination at the time. The Young Pioneers' constitution explained that the scar corresponds to the missing triangle on the Pioneers Company flag. That makes the lore even more appealing. I like the sense of ceremony now and then. It makes me even more eager to join again than the others. I was so serious about the whole thing, even though I only have some vague understanding about the purpose of the organization. It's just a combination of my impression and pure imaginations. On the day of initiation, I couldn't control myself from shaking one of the his shoulder in my classroom like a psychopath. "We're going to join the Young Pioneers. Do you understand what that means?" I repeatedly yelled at him. I'm not just questioning him, but also myself. If my memory didn't lie, quite the contrary, he just looked at me in the eye without any noticeable emotion on his face. Obviously, he couldn't understand my excitement. For him, or for most of the kids in the school, joining the Young Pioneer didn't mean anything remotely meaningful. They just didn't have the expectation that I have at the time. They probably considered me an over-exaggerated moron. I hate to admit this, but I think they were right in the end. I was initiated in the local Martai Park. A big sister pioneer helped me to wear the scarf. Oh, even more perfect, the day was raining. I guess that sort of satisfied everything I was hoping for as a holy ceremony for the beginning. But after that, that's when the reality kicked in bluntly. I soon realized that becoming a pioneer didn't change anything for me. No cool brotherhood, no privilege. We don't even work under the same goal and speak in the same language. Except wearing scarves every day becoming a meaningless burden for me, and there were gatekeepers in the school. If you forgot to wear them, you weren't allowed to enter the school. Don't worry, you can always spend 1 yuan RMB to buy a new one made of pround in the store, which ran by the relatives of the principal. After 1 or 2 years of abuse, your original holy red scarf started to worn off, just like my faith to the Young Pioneer group. Yeah, you can now salute to the teacher and to the flag, but that's pretty much it. The organization itself is a hollow shell without any substance. Nobody cares about the Young Pioneers, not even the Young Pioneers themselves. Always prepare, it's also an ambiguous slogan to bring upon. I don't know about the past, but at the time of the mid-90s, as capitalism flushed into China, all the Young Pioneer doctrine become obsolete and blank. I'm pretty sure that the adult people didn't believe in communism at the time. I'm talking about your parents, your teachers, and everyone else. The main thumb in the 90s is to make money and survive the inflations. Everything related to the materialism. How could they still make us join the communist youth group? The whole thing was a mistake to begin with. Just like somebody dreams about swimming and wakes up with their body still stroking as if they were still in the water. First of all, I didn't realize that the Young Pioneers was a political group for kids to join, but shouldn't you ever join any political group without a well-formed political opinion? Do we even have the basic freedom to choose for ourselves when it comes to politics? Nobody seems to care. We joined this group simply because people in Russia invented it, and Russia is always our big brother, just as the old saying goes, today's Soviet Union is like our tomorrow. Therefore, everything from Russia must be good. And where is the science lab and all the hardware they promised us in the Pioneer magazines? I was getting none of those. There were no events to attend, no wild environments to explore, no mentor to teach you anything on how to resembling a radio device, and so on. And there were no enemy who were always trying to sabotage our great socialist society. Although I was disappointed, I kept my disappointment to myself because I realized that I was one of those few kids who wrongly believe in the organization's ideology. I had been over-idealistic without realizing the reality of the situation. It's partially my fault. Despite the negative experience, it wasn't all bad. I began to question things and gradually learned to separate reality from ideals. I became less outgoing and learned to observe before expressing myself, just like the other people around me. Nowadays, the Young Pioneers still exist, and I often see kids wearing red scarves when school is closed. I wonder if they will ever be disappointed by the organization and the ideology it represented. Or if they just won't overthink things like I did. Maybe I'm the only victim of my idealistic personality. I don't know. I still obsessed with the idea of a youth group where you can join and helping each other to explore the unknown. I know there is somewhere in my heart I still have faith.
气学养的，不知道来这干啥的。量化积分一个个的扣的惨不忍睹。
好，简单让我们班长给大家公布一下，也就是说这个扣分加分就是与我们平常，待会儿我给我们的班规给大家解释一下啊，也就是了解一下你孩子在学校的表现。
周一扣的最严重的就是张宝木。张宝木呢，天天在上课睡觉，拿什么危险的物品，然后呢，各种事都干不出来。然后呢，我就不说其他人，就说张宝木，各位家长就可以看出来自己孩子在学校是什么样的。光张宝木总共周一到周四就已经扣了62分。